quick. We got our ingredients. I've got star anise, black pepper, this is cinnamon, and this is a little licorice. So, and I like to use the whole dried ingredients for flavoring, not powders. I think the flavor works a little bit better. Comes out, the profile comes out a little stronger. So what I'm going to be doing here is basically taking some ginger. So I like to get it in bulk like this. This is the Saccharomyces cerevisiae yeast that I like to use, and this is number 71B. And this is kind of like a floral flavor profile at the end. So it's like when you're drinking, you taste all these flavors that we're going to be putting in, and then right at the very end of that, you get kind of like a fruity sensation. And that's this yeast. It's an after flavor of this yeast. We got our sugar we're going to put in. This has been steeping for about 15 to 20 minutes. And it's looking good. I want to let it get a little bit darker. I don't really measure ingredients. I just kind of put things in from experience. So you guys, I guess you can kind of see the amounts here. So just to give you an idea, this is it's not an exact science. So you can alternate through these different spices, you know, for whatever flavor you like after you taste it. We used to drink this a lot, and I'm going to tell you, man, it'll do some damage to your teeth if you drink it every single day. So definitely use this as a treat on the side. Highly recommend that one. Or brush your teeth like directly after drinking this. But the problem the dentist said was that when I drink it, I'll take sips and walk around and sip little bits. You know, if I were to just chug it, everything would be good. So just keep that in mind, you know. So I've got some ginger in here. You guys can see about how much it is. I didn't measure. I don't usually. I like to put a little water in with mine, just to help my blender out, get it into finer bits. If you've got like a Vitamix or something, you probably won't need to do this. But with a Ninja, it definitely helps to put some liquid in it to make sure everything gets chopped up real fine, so you can get the tea out. The goal is to make as much surface area as possible, because with more surface area, there's more cells being broken down. And if there's more cells being broken down, then that means that we get more flavor out of it, and that's even better. So we want to make sure that we get it chopped up real fine. Alrighty, good. I'm trying not to put too much water in. I just want to make a tea because we need the additional space in the pot to fill it up with ice when we're all done, so we don't have to wait for it to cool down, because we have to wait before we put the yeast in here to less than 100 degrees before we put our yeast in, or we're basically throwing them into an environment they're going to be very unhappy in. And there are some that can survive in temperatures higher than that, so you may not kill everything if you forget. But it definitely reduces population if you put them in, especially right away from going to like room temperature in here in dormant state, and then put them directly into it. That would be bad. So at this point, what I'm going to do is do pitching them, where I pour a little bit of water into a glass, and then I'll pour the yeast into the glass with the water to pitch them, is what it's called. So and then I think it's called pitching because, you know, when you're all done with everything and it's in the glass, like you pitch it into it. I don't know, but sounds good to me. So here we go. This is just regular chlorinated tap water, and I realized that, you know, these are microorganisms and that chlorine is really bad for microorganisms. I understand that from taking care of my yard and building a food forest. So that is very good information, guys. If you want beautiful plants, it makes a huge difference when you're dealing with yeast and microorganisms to use chlorinated and non-chlorinated. You definitely want no chlorine. Huge difference in plant growth. I'm very excited about learning this because, I mean, just walking in the beauty and abundance is absolutely wonderful. This packet is made for 5 gallons, so you can kind of base what you're doing off of how much is in the packet and know that that's about 5 gallons worth, so we can divide it up by 5 and pour in about that much. It's not an exact science because when these yeast get into the water here, they're going to activate and come alive, and then when we pour that into our ginger beer, what's going to happen is they're going to start, and when this is cooled down, not when it's hot, they're going to start feeding, and they're going to start propagating, and they're going to spread wildly throughout this solution. So if we put a little too much, it's not a big deal. You know, the only thing you don't want to do is not put enough. And there are, like, you do need to put a certain percentage in order to get up to what you want to ferment, to activate it and get it going. It's colonization, which means the more yeast you put in, the easier it is for them to take over that material and colonize it, that substrate. You know, so we can look at this in a scientific way and kind of get a feel for what's going on. Or, you know, if you don't really care about the science aspect of it, you can literally just pour the whole thing in and it won't hurt you. But you'll have a lot of dead yeast residue on the bottom when you're done, and that doesn't taste very good. So just keep that in mind. It is good to kind of match the amount of yeast that you're using to the amount of water, or the amount of yeast you're adding in to the amount of water here. Because not all of them are going to survive. A lot of these that are in here, this is millions, you know, maybe even more than that. So when you look at it in terms of like millions of yeast in this bag, and they've been dormant for a long time, and this is, you know, who knows how old this is before I got it. You know, when you take into account those factors, there's really no telling, honestly, like how many are going to be alive. But I do know that this is pretty good because I've used it several times. You know, I've probably maybe 20, 30 of these packets I've used so far in the past year. So I like this product. I do. So about I'm only doing 2 gallons, so this is probably way more than I needed, but it's about half the pack. So that would be 2.5 gallons basically is what I could make with this, according to, you know, the standardized understanding, which is not an exact science. So the yeast are pitching at the moment, and these guys, this is our ginger. Got some nice ginger brewing. I'm gonna let this steep like a tea for about 20 minutes, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off. It won't get any hotter, so this won't get any. I'm even gonna remove it from the eye. Get our spices over here, and the rest of the yeast you can just put in the fridge. I think it's the best place because we want to keep them dormant. So we don't want them to get moisture. That's top priority. Moisture activates them, and we want to make sure they stay in a cool, dry place. That is where they're most comfortable in their dormant state. So, fridge. Alright guys, time to add the sugar. I don't really measure. I just use the cups, like pretend this is a cup. So it's this is just a ladle, so a soup ladle. And I usually put 2 of these in per gallon. So just to give you an idea. And we're going to ferment this for about 4 days, 4 to 5 days. And that's out of the fridge and countertop ferment. So for about 4 days, and then we're going to put it in the fridge after that to kind of put the yeast into a dormant state so it doesn't ferment as quickly, but it still ferments a little slower, and that way we can drink it while it's fermenting. So keep it on the bottom shelf. 55 or so degrees is a good temperature. And when we take it out, you know, at that point it's already cold shocked, which is wonderful. So we don't have to worry about, you know, explosions happening, because when you put this much yeast in to, you know, and you don't really look at the concentrations closely, you can make bottle bombs. You can make a bottle where it like you open it and it just shoots and hits the ceiling. So yeah, we might have a stain or 2, but you know, I was gonna paint it anyway, so you know how that goes. So yeah, so let's put a little sugar in here. One heaping scoop. Two heaping scoops. Up. Alright, so stir it around a little bit. Make sure all those crystals get dissolved, but in truth, this is so hot that sugar probably just dissolved as soon as it hit the water. I mean, it was just boom into it. So, on that note, there we are. It's going. I like to put a berry flavor. I did cherry last time, and it was so wonderful. this is what we've got to work with today that really sparked my attention as I was looking through. We have organic, unsweetened dried mangoes. I think this is a good selection. Mango is just, I love mango. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't found a whole lot that it doesn't go in. So mango is definitely going to go with the ginger. And the way I'm going to do it is while it's still hot here. Now really I should have put this in because it's dried. I should have put it in before. But I'm going to let it steep a little bit longer. It's not going to hurt anything because it's not on the eye. So I'm just going to leave this in here and let it steep for like another 10 minutes or so. That's good. That's really good. So we just need the flavor from this really. We want an accent because we still want the ginger to be strong. So I think this is going to be good. And we're going to put a little molasses in. And the molasses and the mango I think are really going to just kind of mesh and just like be really like a sweet and impactful sweetness that is just tropical and wonderful. This is a 2-gallon pot, and I said 2 scoops per gallon. So that means I need to put 2 more, and I totally missed that. So I'm going to do that right now. So it's not 2 gallons of liquid yet, but it will be. Okay. I'm just picking out a few peppercorns. The rest of this, the star anise and the licorice and the ginger sticks are super easy just to kind of pick out when I'm all done. But the peppercorns, it's, you know, it gets kind of lost in the mush. So I like to just kind of swish it around and use a spoon or something to get it out while it's still wet, so I don't have to be pushing around the mush trying to find them. Since I have to be standing here anyway and stirring it. I could let it sit, and then the mango would all go to the bottom though, and then it would just sit and it wouldn't be agitated. The more you agitate something, the more the liquid can get into the cracks and crevices of the surface, so that can rehydrate it and loosen it up a lot faster if it's being agitated. So since I'm going to be stirring it anyway, I figured why not get out a few peppercorns. I'm going to go ahead and take all the spices out now since it's been a while. It's been 15 or 20 minutes since they started steeping. And I started the spices ahead of time, remember? So I did the spices before I put the ginger in. And I usually leave the ginger in until until I see a change in the color that I'm seeing on the top. You'll see that as it cooks, it gets a little bit dark. And that darkness is how I gauge when I want to stop the beer and put the ice in, stop it from cooking. So I generally like it to be more like more of a brown, definitely a brown, but not a dark brown. Once it starts getting into like dark burnt colors, that color profile of the ginger is not one of my favorites. It's not bad though. We've gone ahead and made the brew anyway when we've overcooked it by accident from like walking around doing things while we're making it. And you know, sometimes the time stretches or varies a little bit. But you know, no matter what the profile is when we're done with the tea, we just go ahead and bottle it to find out. Because as the yeast eat, they change a lot of that profile. And you'd be surprised the flavors that you get from things that you wouldn't really think would combine very well. And it's because the yeast have eaten whatever part of it made it taste different, made it taste like what you thought it might have tasted like. Sugar is an excellent example. That's something that the yeast eat while the solution is fermenting, and the end flavor is completely different from what we expected. So we would think that it would be sweet, but you know, if we're putting all the sugar in, but because the yeast eat the sugar, it turns it to alcohol, and so all we taste is the alcohol flavor, and that's unappealing to a lot of people. Alright guys, blackstrap molasses. This is a byproduct of sugar refining. So this is what comes out of sugar. When we get it white, it should be more of like a brown. I'm sure you guys have experienced cane sugar in the packets and seen the difference in color, how it's a darker brown or an amber. But this is when you see white sugar, this is what comes out of that. So this is how they get it to be white. I think this is the flavor. So when we get sugar, we're getting sweetener that doesn't have a lot of flavor to it. And this is why they literally take the flavor out and charge us more for it. So I don't really meter this. I'm going to do the old bartender 1, 2, 3 pour. They say 3 seconds is an ounce. So this is more syrupy. I'm not sure if that would apply because of that. But here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Good enough. We're doing 6 seconds. So 2 ounces, I guess, is what I would say. You know, the history of ginger beer, the earliest recorded recipes included molasses, so I thought that was really cool, and it really does enhance the flavor. I mean, since I've been making ginger beer and we've been trying different things here and there, by far molasses is like leaps and bounds in terms of the flavor profile impact. Like, you want flavor impact, molasses does it with ginger for sure. This is the mango that's been soaking in here for about 20-30 minutes, and I tried a bite of another piece, and this is all that's left now because it was awesome. Okay, so we got mango that's been soaking in sugar with all these spices and flavors. I mean, just imagine the explosion that is happening when the sensation is, it's awesome. It's like, at first it's so spicy, and it's like almost hot with spicy. There's like heat to it, but the only thing that's got heat in here is the ginger and the black pepper, and it doesn't have very much. So, but it's just I guess the amount that's in there because we've used so much ginger. It's like super spicy right at the beginning, and then it just kind of like dives into this super sweet, just wonderful sensation. And then you start getting all this flavor, and it's just like a roller coaster, guys. This is awesome. But this isn't to eat now, so we gotta strain this, and well, the mango was good. But we gotta strain this first before we use it for our ferment. I use a pot and a strainer, boom, just like that. Oh, there's more mango. That's exciting. That is definitely worth talking about. Oh wait, that means Jess is gonna find out. Oh, I gotta save her a piece. That's some good stuff, man. If I wasn't in love with somebody, I would eat all that right now. But it's only fair. I gotta save her a piece. Alright, guys. Here we go. So we got all our mash out of here, our ginger beer mash, and we've got it now draining a little bit. We're gonna lift this out. And I need to use both hands, and I'm just gonna use a ladle and move that around on the screen and push down on it to get a lot of the moisture that's still in there out. Alright, that's the flavored juice, so that's the good stuff we want to get out of there. So I use a fine micron strainer to do the second sifting. There we go, guys. Got out a good bit more. So next comes the ice. Okay, that is sufficiently cooled. Here comes the yeast. Swirl it, swirl it, swirl it, and pitch. There we have it. And I like to get every little bit. So we're going to pour the rest of that in there too. Alright. Now I want to make a big batch. Like I said, this is 2 gallons, and we put enough in here, enough sugar for 2 full gallons. So we're going to go ahead and put the rest of the water in to fill it up. And that way we know we've got a sufficient amount of sugar. Because I've done this same recipe before, I know the outcome based on how much sugar I put in and the length of time I leave the ferment sitting in the bottle. That's 2 gallons. Now I've got the fancy bottling wand and all this stuff, but you don't need that if you're just doing the bottle, putting it right into the bottles like we're going to be doing. This is not going to be super alcoholic, it's just going to be super carbonated. So if you want something that's more like a ginger ale, you know, this is what you're going for. This is some good stuff. It does have alcohol in it though, guys. The last one I used my ABV meter, my specific gravity meter, and I got about, I think it was like 4.5. But most of them are usually around like 2 or 3 after a day or two. It depends on the yeast that you use, so just keep that in mind. It can vary. If you've got kids around and you're giving them to kids, you know, you want to make sure you know the alcohol content that's in them. But either way, don't give them a lot, because this has got a ton of sugar in it. Even when the yeast are going to eat a lot of it. So if we leave this for like 3 weeks to 2 months or so, you know, at that point, then we can do a test, and the yeast have probably eaten all the sugar at that point. You'll be able to tell though, because it'll be very dry to the taste. You'll be able to taste there's no sugar in it whatsoever, and it'll probably have an alcohol flavor to it as well. But it's always nice when they don't. When they're just nice and lightly sweetened, not real sweet, and then it does have alcohol in it, so you can kind of taste it, but not really. That's like the perfect combination, in my opinion. So, okay guys, moving right along here. Now we've got to bottle it up. You guys can see the soap level in here as the water's going in. So you can see the soap levels rising. And once it gets all the way up to here, and there we go. So that means there's no more soap left in the bottle. And then we can just dump the water out without having to deal with it for a half hour. You know, I don't have time to stand around and take 10 minutes to clean suds out of one bottle. So this is just an easy way to get most of it out. Sometimes there's a little bit left, and I just put a little bit in and switch it around, and boom, all gone. No more. So people say you can't get it all out, and I disagree. This method is definitely the easiest method of cleaning bottles I've found to get star sand out and make sure you get all of it. This is the byproduct of making ginger beer, and it is still usable. It's still good for a lot of things, so I would not throw this away. I use it in smoothies and get a lot of compliments on the smoothies, and I use it in pretty much anything. Like if I'm cooking curry, I'll take this out and put it in, and I try to get the big pieces of the spices out, like the cinnamon and the licorice, and just any in the star anise, you know, the bigger chunks that I didn't get out earlier. But there's a pepper one right there. But see how, like, if I waited until this stage to dig the peppercorns out, I'd have to, like, basically take this and put it on a plate and, like, spread it real thin and pick out all the peppercorns. That's the easiest way to do it. But yeah, sometimes we have a little tea cage that works really well, but I'm not sure what happened to that. It's around here somewhere. Now it's time to bottle. I like to stir it up to make sure that we get a lot of the yeast mixed into every scoop, because they settle down to the bottom. And try to watch. We don't want the ginger beer to come up past this point. And these are hard to see because they're amber. But the beer should stop at the neck. You need this much space to get really good gas exchange for a high carbonation rate. So a lot of people fill it up, and then when they open it, it doesn't have a lot of carbonation, and it's because they don't allow for that gas exchange. So the yeast are going to eat the sugars, and then they're going to create the carbon dioxide in here, but they breathe oxygen. So oxygen goes into them, they eat all the sugars and you know, stay alive with the oxygen, and then they excrete carbon dioxide. If we don't give them room here, you're not going to be able to get a lot of carbonation. So the secret to getting carbonation is to leave headroom in the bottle. To give you an idea, see where the liquid starts in there. And make sure you clean everything with star sand before you do this. So everything. But in truth, you know, 300 years ago, they were making ginger beer like crazy. I mean, just people doing it in their homes, and we had no idea what sterilization was. So, you know, just to put it in perspective, we didn't have star sand back then. So you got to keep that in mind, that, you know, some things that we do are just man-made excessive things that really we don't need to do, that we've picked up over time that might be a little overboard. Once the yeast start eating this, they're going to change the pH anyway, and the pH in there is going to be to where nothing else can really colonize it except beneficial bacteria and yeast. So if it's not the bad guys that colonize on the top, won't be able to live in here, like molds. When we get to the last little bit here, I usually line it all up so I can just grab this whole thing and dump it right in. little more than just one bottle. Alright then. That means that we need to get one more bottle. Well, actually, I'm just going to pour that in a glass. This is what we do with the last bit. It is also very, very tasty. Ooh, more than a glass. Just is. Look at that. It was meant to be. Alright, guys. So all that's good. That's good stuff, guys. Alright guys, this is Tom with Permaculture Wilmington. We have a Facebook group and a YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe, and as always, live regeneratively and grow abundantly.